Dishing with Danielle Henry, and for today's recipe, we're going to be making croissants. Here's what you need. Parchment paper, measuring cups and spoons or a scale, a pizza cutter, a rolling pin, a pastry brush, 2 baking trays, an electric mixer with a dough hook, and if you don't have a dough hook, then you can always knead it by hand. Here are the ingredients that you'll need. 500 grams of flour plus extra for dusting, 55 grams of sugar, 10 grams of salt, which I'll measure out later on, 150 milliliters of lukewarm milk, 150 milliliters of lukewarm water, 8 grams of yeast, and 250 grams of cold, unsalted, sliced butter. All the conversions will be in the description box down below. Our first step, we're going to mix the lukewarm water with the lukewarm milk. Next, we're going to bloom our yeast by gently sprinkling it over the warm milk mixture. While our yeast is blooming, we're going to mix together our dry ingredients. Our flour, our sugar, and our salt. We're just going to stir it on low speed. Once our yeast is fully dissolved in the milk mixture, we're going to add it to our dry ingredients, and we're going to mix on medium-low speed. Once your dough is formed into a ball, you're going to turn it out and you're going to knead it a few times. After a few turns, you're going to lightly wrap your dough and you're going to refrigerate it for anywhere from 3 to 8 hours. Now we're going to work on our butter block. I'm going to be using this 11 by 17 inch tray as a reference to keep my butter block proportionate to my dough. So in other words, I'll be rolling out my dough to 11 by 17 inches. And my butter block has to be 2/3 the size of my dough. You can eyeball it, but I do have a tape measure just to be precise. I'm going to mark on my parchment paper an 11 by 11 box. And this is where our cold butter comes in. I'm going to lay the butter on the parchment sheet within the perimeter of my markings. Once my butter is on my parchment sheet, I'm going to take a second one, and then I'm going to fold both sheets to the perimeter of my markings. Once your butter is completely sealed, you're going to flip it. If you find that at any point your butter is melting or getting warm or softening, you want to put it in the freezer just to make sure that it stays cold and hard. Once you've rolled out your butter block, it should look like this, a sheet of butter. And just to make sure that you have the right size, place it into your sheet and make sure it takes up 2/3 of your baking sheet. Once it's formed and it's the right size, you just want to chill it in the fridge or the freezer. So our dough's been chilling for about 5 hours. And here I have extra flour for dusting. Make sure all your surfaces are floured. And now we're going to roll our dough out to the size of our baking tray. When you're rolling out your dough, make sure that it's not sticking. If you find that it is sticking, just dust it with some more flour. Make sure you're able to move it around at all times. And you want to make sure that you're keeping your corners and your sides straight. Once your dough is rolled out to the size of your baking sheet, then you're good to go. Once your butter is placed in the middle of your dough, you're going to do a trifold, just like a pamphlet. And your dough should meet and create a seam. And now you're going to use your rolling pin to seal the seam. If you find that your dough or your butter are getting sticky or getting to room temperature, just throw it in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes. So now that our butter is completely wrapped up in our dough, we are going to roll it out to the size of our baking tray again. So once your butter is inside and your dough is rolled out to the size of your baking sheet, you're going to fold it into thirds again, this time the opposite way. Once it's folded into thirds, you're going to refrigerate it for about 20 minutes, just to make sure that the butter stays solid. Once our dough is chilled, we're going to roll it out a second time. And we're going to roll it the opposite way that we did last time. So we're going to roll with this seam. And now for our third and final fold, you always want to start with a floured surface. Make sure your dough is not sticky and make sure it's cold. And again, we're going to be rolling with the seam. So the opposite way that you rolled last time. Now it's time for our third and final fold. Make sure that your dough is not sticking. And if you need to, I already did, but go ahead and straighten up your edges with a pizza cutter. You can trim as much as you need. And then we're going to fold it in thirds for the last time. Once it's folded, we're going to go ahead and chill our dough for another 20. So it's finally time for our final roll. We're going to roll it out until it's the size of our baking sheet. That is 17 by 11 inches, or pretty close. Once your dough is rolled out to the final size, you're going to trim your edges using a pizza cutter. Cutting the actual shape of the croissant, you can measure, but I prefer to eyeball it from corner to bottom. So now would be a good time to preheat your oven. You're going to make an egg wash. 1 egg, a pinch of salt, and a pinch of sugar. Now it's time to roll. You're going to take your chilled dough and you're going to stretch it out just a little bit. And you're going to stretch out the base as well. And you're going to roll from the inside, keeping it tight all the way until the tip is folded under. And if it looks like this, you've successfully rolled your first croissant. As you're rolling your croissant, you want to make sure that the inside is completely tucked, and as you roll forward, that you're keeping a steady, even pressure. All the way to the tip. Now you're going to let them rest and rise until they're soft and springy and have increased in size. Once these have risen, we're going to cover them in egg wash, and we're going to bake them at 390 degrees for 7 minutes, and then we're going to change the temperature down to 355 degrees, and we're going to let them bake for 15 minutes.